All right, so this video is just going to attempt to provide an informal presentation of the sort of like first working version, I guess, or at least first like semi-stable, semi-usable version of the third version of Job Itinerary. Um, and I'll be showing the company interface in this demonstration. So the employee interface and the customer interfaces that employees and customers would work with haven't actually been implemented yet. But they shouldn't be too difficult to implement because I sort of have like all of the components, or at least most of the components necessary for those interfaces already fleshed out. So at least the employee interface, that's not going to take long to add. And in the time being, for me as an employee, I'll just be able to use the company interface to log my hours and whatever. And the company interface is by far is definitely the most like feature full one out of them all. So if you want to actually test around with the app at all yourself, unfortunately, you can't test on mobile yet because I only have a copy of the mobile iOS version, and I haven't, fully done the Android version. But that shouldn't, once again, shouldn't be too hard. But if you want to just visit the website either on your desktop or on your phone, you can visit this URL right here and sign up for an account. So I'm already using the company email as the account I'm using for testing and everything. So just going forward, I'll be using this one. So if you just want to test around, just create like a different account with just a random email for now. Just be your personal email. But for now, for testing purposes, I'm just going to log in. Sorry if you can hear any noise in the background. I'm not sure if my mic's picking up that or not. So anyhow, so once you log in, you're basically taken to this main page, and there are three primary views in the application. So you have the home view, and then you have the customers view, or tab, I should really call it, and the employees tab, and then also settings, which for now doesn't really include much. Um, so these are the three main views through which you can view different information about the company, about employees, the customers, visits, whatever. Um, so I'm going to dive a little deeper, of course, into each of these tabs. But for now, the important thing to understand, I just want to sort of bring up a few key points about the app so it makes more sense as I explain it. So one thing to understand is that like all of the data in this application is sort of intermingled. So you can see up here like I have jobs and visits. Well, visits are related to jobs. Customers have different dates on which their properties were worked, and those dates also relate to visits, which might relate to jobs, and so on and so forth. So just keep in mind like nothing's really isolated in the application. And this was kind of like a big design choice I made when creating the application so that things were more interconnected. I kind of designed it purposefully in that way so that it, make it easier with invoices and generally just make the app make more sense and more usable. And it definitely made it a bit harder to design, but I think it's worthwhile. All right, so that's kind of like all I just wanted to bring up there. So now I'll just preview each of these tabs. So first here, we have the Home tab, which is sort of like meant to be just like an at-a-glance tab. So on the desktop version, you're able to see both the jobs and your visits, and they're sorted by most recent, basically. So right now we only have one job and two visits listing, but of course, if we had more, you'd be able to scroll down and view them all as you wish. So, all right. To start off, I think I'll start with viewing a visit since this is like the most foundational unit in the application, or better said, it's like the smallest unit. So a visit is just one employee visiting a particular property. So it relates to both employees and customers. So I'll just go to this visit first on January 26th. So this is the main view for a visit, how it looks on desktop. If we were real quick to go to mobile and sort of see how it looks, it looks more sort of something like this. So not exactly how it looks, but very similar to this on mobile. I just wanted to kind of show you what the difference is, so you're not surprised by that, I guess. So within a visit, you can of course log the date, and then you have this little like time log thing here. So for employees logging their time, they can press the play and stop button, and if you start a job at a particular time and don't have an end time yet, there'll be like a little timer up here. So I'll show that when I actually add a new visit. But in this instance, this visit was kind of like already logged. So there's already, like a total number of hours and whatever that gets auto computed. And of course, importantly, you have to select the employee, which in this case, I just have Will in there. And you have to select the customer. So, a visit needs to have both an employee and a customer for it to make sense. You can, if you're planning out the day, you can describe when it should start, when it should end. And then the address, this is powered by Google Maps. So, of course, I have the address here to be John Spenny's address, which was actually autofilled. I'll get into that a little bit later. And another notable thing, going back to the interaction between different units, is that, you can attach a job to a particular visit. So a job is like a more multi-day sort of larger unit. So like if we have a design job for John Spenny, I could attach this visit and be like, this visit was related to this particular job. And similarly to the old version of JobItinerary, we have like the type of work here, some notes, tasks, and now you can actually add images for tasks, which is a bit helpful. So, you could do something like that. I'm not going to actually do that here, but, of course you can check them off. You can reorder them as you need to. And then tools, similar thing, very simple little interface here. And finally, images. I know it looks a little bit weird on a screen size this big. There's like a max size I set for the images, but, of course you can add as many images as you want. They get pre-appended to the beginning of the list of images. And yeah, so pretty much sums it up for a visit. And this interface here, you'll be spending a lot of time, and especially employees will be spending a lot of time in this interface because they have to log their information here and view their tasks and whatever. All right, so going back to home, as we can see, we get like a little overview and these little cards here of the visits without even having to go into them, which is nice when you're just trying to view things at a glance. So next, we have jobs, which I just will briefly go over. So like I said, jobs are a more multi-day thing. And at the top, you can see the customer for that job, estimated start, estimated end. Down here, this tracks like some statistics about the job. Right now, it's just tracking the total time that was spent on the job, which was just that one visit by Will. Like visits, you can also add like job level tasks. So same sort of thing, but in the context of the job, not the visit. And there are two tabs in the job. So right now we're in the main tab, but you can also go to the visits tab. So we can see, once again, we can open this up and look, we get a little modal here with that visit that is related to the job. And from here, we can delete it, do all sorts of things, whatever. Add new visit for that job. And, if we add a new visit for that job from here, we'll see if we go back to here, boom, the new visit's up here under that job. So everything's sort of like interconnected in that way. So the only other thing I just want to take a peek at in this home tab is just some of the search capabilities. And we'll see these throughout the app. But the search is, can be pretty general. So They're like pretty general keywords that can be used to search for, either a visit, a job, or a day. So like if I type in January here, I'll get all of the visits in January. But I mean, I could also type in the specific date, like 22/01/07. Oh, 27. My bad. So like I can see, specific dates. I could search for just visits with a particular employee or customer, Spinny. So there's other search fields that you can search for as well, but those are some of the main ones. So it's a pretty general field, which is what I like about it. And, the same sort of thing applies with the jobs. Yeah, so I think that sums up this tab for the most part. So now if we go to the customers tab, we first are visited with a list of customers, right? So right now we only have one, which is John Spenny. So we'll just select him for now. And up here, we can also easily switch between the customers if we're in a particular customer or add a new one. So yeah, there are 3 different tabs in the customer view: dates, jobs, and info. Dates is probably the one spend the most time looking at, given that it shows every date that some employee or employees worked on a customer's property, and you can see them at a glance here. So I guess I'll just view an example date to help demonstrate what it does. So when you go to it, this will, give us once again information about it. And remember, this date too. This is the same date that we did that example visit on with Will. This date is intrinsically linked to that visit. So we could see 4.9 hours worked, the types of work, if other employees had worked on it, their, type of work would be listed as well. The employees working, whatever. So that's that. And then you get a nice little visit view of all of the visits on that date. So if there was a visit from Will and a visit from me, you see them separately and you can view them all here. So the idea really, a huge idea of this app is just to be able to view things in different layouts to like make it easy to just really see like, okay, on this day, I'm going to this day for this customer, and now I could see like all of the visits, and from there it's really easily accessible, both on the desktop and the mobile version. So, and even in here, like if somebody forgot to log a visit, we could go ahead and be like, all right, we need to add a new visit, and Ethan forgot to log his. Well, I don't have me there right now, but let's say Will had another visit. We could add it and track the time and do all sorts of things within this day view. So that pretty much summarizes that. So I went back there now to the customer view. So we have the dates. We can also view the jobs. Once again, this job we'd already defined on that particular customer. So if we select the job, we got a familiar job view. One thing, unfortunately, right now, this is a bug I spent many hours trying to fix or really work around, but there's one problem where like I can't go back sometimes from a particular view. So like if you notice when I went to jobs here, I selected this. I couldn't go back to John Spenny, which there's a very technical reason for why I had to do that, having to do with like making sure things reload properly and all that. But I'm going to try to figure out a solution for that. I've literally pondered it and tested different things for a while. But for now, unfortunately, as you're navigating the app, you kind of have to like, you might have to like go in here and then you go to a job like this and it's like, oh, how do I get back? Well, I have to reselect the customers tab, go back to John Spenny. So it's a bit annoying. But for now, that's just how it is. So finally, in the customers tab, just to finish up customer, we can see, various info that we can edit. And importantly, there's this address. So like, we can search for his address. And the good thing about this address is that since it's powered by Google Maps, I haven't completely implemented this feature yet, but if we like press on this button next to it, it'll bring up the native Maps app or the native GPS app used on somebody's device and essentially route them to that place. So, if we're, and also this address is copied over to like any sort of visits, from this particular customer. So like if we go back here and we're in, this visit for John, this address was copied over. So if somebody's like in the mobile app, like an employee's in the visit, it's like, oh, how do I get there? You press that. Once again, I haven't implemented that yet, but it's pretty simple implementation from what I've seen. All right. Yeah, so there's also a little place for like property images. I haven't added any, but yeah. And then of course you can delete the customer and do all that. All right. I don't want to spend too much time on that. So next we have employees. It's a little bit more in depth than the customer view for now. So, it looks similar, but there's a lot of different functionality. So once again, we have dates now, but now instead of them being days that were worked on a customer's property, as in the customers tab, we have days that an employee worked. So if we have this date, you can also toggle them if they're paid or unpaid. I'll get to that later. But we could go to this date on January 26th. And now this is quite important. So we had the individual visits, right? And like the time logs for the visits. Right now we have 2 visits. Like, let's just say I don't know, I'll add another visit here. So right, we have 2 visits on this one date. So we track the individual hours worked for those 2 visits. Obviously, these aren't very realistic hour counts. It's a long day. But also, employees are going to be like expected to log the hours for the entire day too. So like when employees come, clock in, they'll press this play button. When they clock out, they'll press this. But also when they like arrive on a particular property, they're expected to log the visits themselves, right? And I mean, of course, all of this can be done after the fact, like at the end of the day, if I'm like, okay, now I'll add the visits in and, log the particular times for them or whatever. Like it doesn't have to be done in the moment, but it's probably easier if the employee just goes ahead and remembers to press play and pause or end, whatever you want to call this button, right? So, I'll just enter, let's say it was like a 14-hour total day, right? So this is the actual, like the hour count for the day is what matters in terms of the employee's pay, but the hour count for the individual visits, I suppose, is what matters when it comes to like invoicing customers and, determining like time spent on those properties. All right. So finally, I'm just going to, continue to go over the employee day tab right now. That's what we're in. You can see we're in January 26th. So for a given day, like if, you're setting it up, you could be like, where do we meet? It could be at the shop. You could say like, what time are we meeting? The planned start. Maybe it's 10:30. And then also you can input like the hourly rate for that day for the employee. So like the default rate is going to be assumed of that employee. I'll get to that in a second, but like let's say Will makes $18 an hour. Well, you can, if it's a day where did snow removal or something, wanted to add more, you could update that for that day. And yeah, so you can view the visits for that day. Kind of already showed. Press on them, you get a little modal with them. And within this tab, you can directly track the time. And finally, you can like have like expenses for that day. I know this view looks a little weird because it's so big. Just make it a little bit smaller for now. So you can, employees can log their expenses. Be like, I don't know, I bought a rake for $30, right? So this will all show up in the employee's pay section, which I'll get into in a second. Yeah. So once again, I know the user interface is a little bit clunky right now because of the lack of the back button. So we have to go back to employees, back to Will to view that. And in this days tab, we can also filter between like paid and unpaid days. So let's say like, or we were paid for this date. Then it will only show the remaining unpaid days if we press unpaid days. So we can filter between these two. Finally, we can view the expenses, all of the expenses for the employee in this expenses tab. So this is the accumulated expenses of all of the days. And once again, we can filter between paid and unpaid. So I'll make that paid, as you can see. And then we have this tab, which is quite important. And this is the pay tab. So in here, we can set the employee's, default hourly rate. And we can view a lot of metrics about the employee, right? So these are all calculated based on the employee's hourly rate for each day. So like right now, we could see $350 owed in work hours, and then $0 owed in expenses. But if we went ahead and made this expense unpaid, right, that $30 expense, we go back, boom, now we have $30 owed in expenses, $380 owed total. So it's just an easy way to track like how much you have to pay. And you can also filter by like on only things that are unpaid or all. So if we go to all hours and expenses, well, right now everything's unpaid, but if we make this date paid, now you can see the unpaid, there's 0 left to pay. Go to all, you can see like the total amount that the employee made. You can also filter by time period. So like if you want to view like how much an employee made from, I don't know, January 25th through this, it'll filter for that, which could certainly be useful in some cases. Let's turn that off for now. And finally, you got the employee's info, basic contact info, and options to delete the employee. All right, so that sort of summarizes the views. There are just a few things I want to bring up now, though. So one of them is this button. You've probably noticed it, maybe not. You'll notice it more on mobile. This plus button. So the idea with this was just to make it really easy to add something from anywhere, like especially if you're on the mobile app. But I mean, even on the desktop app, like if I'm just like, okay, like I'm the boss and I want to go and plan out a day for my employee, I could be like, okay, let me do this. I'll plan out tomorrow, create day, and then I could just, start getting going right here, and I could be like, okay, you're gonna probably visit at, I'll open up this visit. So you're gonna visit, Will's visiting John, right? 46 Little Island Drive, whatever. So you're gonna be doing cleanup and some of your tasks, So some of these things definitely take some time to get used to, and that's, I think, part of the reason why a lot of companies don't adopt these sort of applications like the one I'm making, is just because there's a bit of a learning curve to it, as with most things. Like it won't just be automatic, but as you get used to using the interface and inputting different information for employees, my hope is that it will make more sense relatively quickly. And the idea with this one in particular is that it's a pretty simple interface compared to some of the more complicated applications like Jobber or something like that, which they do a really good job too. But the fact that we're able to refine this application for our purposes is pretty nice, and we have our own thing and whatever. So yeah, so I was just talking about this plus button because it makes it really easy to, like, if an employee's like, all right, I'm here and I want to log a visit, you can just be like plus visit, and then boom, date. I could be like, oh, I forgot to log my visit from this date, and it was like 8 hours, whatever, start time, you can input that. Yeah. So, once again, if I select the customer, boom, that address is autofilled. So, yeah. All right. What else did I want to discuss? Yeah, so just briefly, the remaining things are sort of unimportant. So, like, I mean, they're important, but, like, maybe self-explanatory. So, like, for adding customers and whatever, you get this little modal, and, you could add Steve Devlin, I'll say email, right? So this adds a new customer. Now we can select between the two. Similar sort of thing for employees. Yeah, I mean, adding jobs, it's, pretty, it's pretty simple. It makes sense. What else? Yeah, so one other thing I did want to discuss, which, I alluded to earlier, is some of the stuff that's going on in the background, right? So let's say I add a new visit, and I make the date of this visit, right? Like, let's say, I don't know, I'm logging a visit away from the past back in 2021, December 25th. So if I log this visit, Christmas, why did I choose that? I don't know. But if I log this visit and let's say I select Will as an employee, let's say Steve Devlin as a customer, whatever, and, an address. So if I do this and log this visit for this date, if I go to customers now and check out Steve Devlin, look, this date is now here, right? Before we didn't have any dates for Steve, and all we did was add a visit for Will. But since we added that visit under Steve's name, there was some work going on in the server in the background that now adds this date and tracks this visit here. Same thing with employees. So if we go to Will, we go to Will's dates, log dates, look at that. That date is there. So it just kind of shows up. And there's other instances of this happening throughout the application. So the idea is you don't want to have to do something twice. Like, it's kind of automated in a sense. It's simple automation, but it is automation. Yeah, so I just wanted to go over that. Finally, one more thing I'll go over, sort of handy feature. Let's say we're planning out a day, January 28th. And I'm like, okay, this day looks good. The boss planned it out. Or, maybe an employee created it, but two employees are doing the same thing on the day, or, are doing roughly the same thing. Well, I don't know where. So there's supposed to be a copy to another employee button. And I'm not sure where that is. All right, so I think it's being hidden for some reason right now. I'll look into that, but there is a copy to another employee button that allows you to copy a date to another employee. And of course, you can also change the date. If I change that to January 31st, we now see that. All right, we get an error because for some reason, I'm not sure. But yeah, there's always new errors showing up as you mess around with an application, which, is something I'm getting used to. So yeah, I'll look into why that's happening, but that's pretty much it for what I have to show you. And what I haven't shown you really is the mobile interface, which I have tested on my own iPhone, and I will be using on my own iPhone. And also, I mean, the colors for the app, that's important, but like, you kind of know where you are based on the color, the theme of the app at the moment, right? Um, like I said, I haven't created the employee and customer versions of the app yet, but I'll be able to reuse a lot of what I've already done, so that shouldn't be difficult. I also haven't set up email functionality yet, like we have with the other job itinerary version, how you receive an email. I'm definitely going to prioritize that feature. Um, I haven't made a custom domain for it yet, so right now it just has this very basic default domain, uh, which I will change to jobitinerary.com once things are sort of in place. Um, I also haven't really worked out all of the kinks of the app yet. As you can see, like there's still certain errors that can occur. So like as you're messing around with the app, some weird things might happen without you realizing it. So like that's kind of why like I'm suggesting that for now, uh, the only person that should really be like actually trying to log things with it and use it in the way that's really intended is me, because I can sort of track the bugs and whatever. But I do highly encourage you guys to play around with it and just mess around with how you might organize it and generate some like ideas for how I could you know make minor restructuring improvements to the app as necessary. And yeah, I mean, for now, what I'm essentially thinking it's going to be used for is I'm going to start tracking my own work with it, migrating from the old job itinerary to this one. And I'll give you guys the login so that you can at least view, of course, the my work. But I just don't think you guys should mess around with it too much, like adding new things, deleting stuff, changing stuff. Just it's just if I start logging my work there, I don't want things to get lost and whatever. I mean, it's not going to be the end of the world if that happens, but ideally for now, while it's still a little unstable, we keep it at read only sort of usage. And yeah, my hope also is that you guys will be able to begin sort of like manually translating what's in the app to your invoices and whatever. And hopefully, eventually, that process will become more automated. So, finally, just to end this video, going forward with this, what I essentially would like from you guys, and once again, this is not a timely thing. I haven't been very timely with this just because of the nature of development, but just noting like any strange behavior you guys see, things that need to be improved as soon as possible for you guys to be able to use the app. Also, like more general improvements that you think should be made, and any semi-large features that should be prioritized for me to add, because I created like a list of a lot of features that adding all of those would take a long time, with me just chipping away at it. So like I want to prioritize a couple of the most important features that make sense to add to the app as we go forward. I imagine one's going to be like automatic invoice exports. That seems important. I imagine very important is actually having the employee interface. Maybe soon enough we want a customer interface for customers to be able to log in and view what's happening on their own app. Maybe another important thing is extending this info tab or adding a new tab under customers that's like how to take care of your property. And these aren't really like actually super complicated things to add now that we have this foundational setup. It's really just the idea with this app is it just provides like a new way to organize information in a landscaping setting and for a landscaping company. So sorry if that was like a lot to take in. I definitely tend to ramble when I just let myself free flow on a video like this. So if you want me to make a more concise video, just kind of like bare bones going over what's important, I can. But I hope this video at least helped introduce you to it. Maybe serves as a bit of a reference. I don't know. But yeah, that's job itinerary for now, and hope to talk with you more about it in the future.